In this video, we're going to look at rounding numbers using place value. Write the given numbers in the place value chart and then round to the indicated place value. So let's look at the first example. NASA states that the moon is an average of 238,855 miles away from Earth. So let's put this in the place value chart. Notice we have two groupings of 3 separated by a comma, so that means we're going to use the rightmost groupings. So the 238 is in the thousands subgroupings. And we have 3 digits, so we're going to start all the way to the left. 238,855 ones. Now we're asked to round to the following place values. So first, the nearest thousand. So let's think about what this means. Right now we have 238,855. Okay? And this is a very specific number. It actually might be rounded already. It could be an extra 600 feet and they're not using a decimal place, which we'll learn about later. But this may be more digits than we really need to get a grasp on the value of this number. So notice that this number is bigger than 238,000. Because we have this 855 more than 238,000. But this number is smaller than 239,000 because we don't have enough ones to make this a 9. If we had 1,000 ones, this would be a 9. It would be the next thousands value. So our number, we want to estimate it or round it to the nearest thousand, is between 238,000 and 239,000. So the question is, which one are we going to use to represent the best estimate of this number? Well, what we do is notice that halfway between these numbers, so they're 1,000 apart, so halfway between is 500. So I'm going to write 238,500. So we decided that if the number is 500 or larger, we would round up to 239,000, and if it's less than 500, we can round down to 238,000. That would be closer. So our goal is to get the closest of these two numbers. So looking at our number, okay, notice we have 855, so that's going to be between 500 and 238,500 and 239,000. But we really don't need to look at all of these digits. All we really need is to look at this 8, the digit immediately to the right, because if it's 5 or higher, then the rest of it is going to be greater than 500. So the 8 is greater than or equal to 5. Okay, so that means we're going to add 1 to the place we're rounding to, so 239. And then we're going to use zeros for the remaining digits. Okay, so notice we included the first numbers. You don't drop these. Okay, so we have 239. We changed the 8 to a 9 because this was 5 or greater, and then replace all the other digits with 0. Okay, now let's try a more streamlined approach. So for the 10,000s place, well, here's the 10,000s digit. The digit to the right is 8. That's 5 or larger. So I'm going to add 1 to this digit. So I keep everything to the left. So I keep my 2. I add 1 to 3 and make all of these zeros. So 0, comma, 0, 0, 0. Okay. So to the nearest 10,000, it's 240,000. And finally, looking at the nearest 100,000, here's the 100,000s place. We have a 2. The digit to the right is 3. Well, that's less than 5. So that means we want to round down like this scenario. Okay. So I'm not going to add 1 to 2. I'm going to keep it at 2. And I'm going to replace all of these digits with zeros. So 200,000. Okay. So we've rounded this number to the nearest 1,000, 10,000, and 100,000. Let's look at the next example. According to the 2010 U.S. Census, Chicago was the third largest U.S. city with a population of 2,695,598 people. So let's put that in this chart. Notice we have three groupings. There's two commas. Okay, so we're going to use three groupings here. Okay, this just has a single digit. This 2 is in the millions place, in the 1 millions place. Okay, if it was supposed to be here, this would be a 20 or a 20, not a 2. And then we'll fill the rest in from left to right. 695, 598. So now let's round this to the nearest thousand. So here is the thousands place. It's a 5. Now I look at the digit to the right. Well, the digit to the right is also a 5, okay? But this 5 tells me that I need to round up. So rounding up, again, means I add 1 to this thousands place. So I'm going to make this a 6, and I change these to zeros. All of these numbers stay the same. So I have my 2, 6, 9. They stay the same. I add 1 to this 5 and make it a 6, and I replace all of these values with zeros. Okay. Let's look at the next one. So first we want to locate the 10 thousands place. Okay, here it is. The digit is 9. And the digit to the right of the 10 thousands place is 5. So we want to round up. Now something a little bit different is going to happen here. So let's write something below this. Okay. So in the previous examples, we would write all the digits to the right, so the 2 and the 6 stay. We add 1 to this digit. We want to round up since this is 5 or bigger. So I'll add 1. So 9 plus 1 is 10. And then I make all of these 0. Okay. But in our place value system, we only use the digits 0 to 9. Okay. If we have 10 of something, remember the next place value is 10 times as large as the previous place value. Or in other words, in this case, 10 thousands is the same as 100,000. Okay. So these numbers are a little bit big, so it may be hard to conceive of this. This pattern follows for our entire place value system. But just like if you had 10 ones, that would be 1 10 and 0 ones. Or if you had 10 tens, we wouldn't put a 10 here. We'd put 100 0 tens and 0 ones. So that's what we're doing. So we're not going to put a 10 here. Instead, we're going to add 1 to the next place value, replace this with 0, and change this to a 7. So rounding to the nearest 10,000 is 2,700,000. Okay. And it looks like it's rounded to the nearest 100,000. Okay. And that's because this was between, okay, remember if these were all zeros, after the 10 thousands place, we'd have 2,690,000, or we'd have 2,700,000. Okay, so these are 10,000 apart, and these are the two values that this number is between. So when we ended up rounding to the 10 thousands place, the next 10 thousands place was actually a 100 thousands place. Okay, now let's look at the last one. Let's move over to here. This is getting a little bit crowded. So we have the 100 thousands place, which is the digit 6. So I'm going to underline that right here. The digit to the right of 6 is 9. So that means I'm going to add 1 to the 6 and make it a 7. I keep everything to the right. So I'm going to keep the 2, put a comma, change the 6 to a 7, and then replace all the other numbers with zeros. Okay. And that is the number rounded to the nearest 100,000. So notice these are the same. That can happen. They're both correct. This is the number rounded to the nearest 10,000 and 100,000. Here, when we rounded to the 10,000, it also gave us a 100,000 place value.